Our next speaker is the Honorable Scott Martin, State Senator and Chair of the Appropriations Committee. Again, his biography is in your program, and there's a lot I could say, but I'll just mention these few things. One is, while he is the Chair of the Appropriations Committee, he's also known as an outspoken voice for school choice, and he's used that outspoken voice now as our Appropriations Chair to make sure that our dollars are spent wisely. He will be the person running point to make sure that Governor Shapiro does not get to spend $5 billion of money that you and I and our children don't have. He is leading the charge to make sure that Pennsylvania government live within its means. He has a storied background in sports, and as you will see, is a wrestler. I was not. Okay, good. Scott is a tireless advocate for conservative causes and common sense. I can tell you ahead of time, he will do us proud this budget season so that Governor Shapiro, who has one eye on Pennsylvania and another eye on the Iowa caucus, does not spend us into bankruptcy while we get there. He is a dedicated public servant and a dad. Welcome to the stage, my friend, the Honorable Scott Martin.
I think Guy would have made a great wrestler, right? That's why we have different weight classes. I would have been on one end of the spectrum. He would have been on the other. How's everybody doing today? Good? Good. It's great to see everyone coming together. I will tell you, man, do we live in interesting times. And in these times, it's more important than ever that we keep fighting for the Pennsylvania we want to see, the United States that we want to see, and what we're going to hand off to our children and our grandchildren. You know, my wife has a saying, she's very upbeat, very positive, and her saying always is, when people ask her how she's doing, she says she's living the dream every day. I think about that, and then I think about what we're dealing with in Harrisburg. And I'm going to set the stage for you a little bit. All right, here we have a state where our fastest growing age demographic is 80 and above. The number of kids graduating out of our high schools continues to plummet. It's projected to go down by another 17% over the next decade. And you can see when you talk about that's our future workforce, that's our future tax base, you can see how that just doesn't add up in a prosperous way for the future of Pennsylvania. Then you add in the fact that the Commonwealth currently has a structural deficit of a little more than $3 billion, meaning we're spending $3 billion more than what we're taking in. So what this all adds up to is we're kind of like standing on an edge of a cliff. Are we going to turn around and walk back down to a healthy Pennsylvania? Or are we going to allow this governor, his insatiable appetite to just keep spending more money, help take us over the cliff? So my wife's living a dream every day, and I see the governor's 2025-2026 budget proposal, and I realized the first thing that came to mind to me was this is like fantasy. I felt like I was living in a fantasy world. See, I follow the revenues every month, and revenues have been sputtering. They're about 50 million behind where they should be currently right now. And this governor, knowing that we have an over $3 billion structural deficit, thinks that the best thing to do for Pennsylvania is to actually propose a budget that spends an additional 7.5% more. A governor who wants to think that he wants to expand that deficit by another $3.2 billion. It's fantasy. Now, how does he justify this? Well, I can tell you this. See, by law, by the Constitution, you have to propose a budget and you have to lay out planning years. And in those planning years, you lay out what you expect your average expenditures to be, what you can guesstimate in terms of revenues. And weirdly enough, he has found a way to underreport spending greatly, as if government's going to be flat funded every year for the next 4 or 5 years. And he magically has inflated revenues beyond belief. Last year, he had proposals that he wanted to legalize adult use marijuana. He wanted to capture games of skill, another form of gambling. And wherever you're at in this issue, in terms of the financing, this is what he did. He took that proposal and he multiplied his revenue projections double for adult use recreational marijuana. He took the games of skill revenue, and what did he do? He multiplied it by 5. And weirdly enough, if you look at what he's created, it all makes sense because it gets him through 2028, 2029, making it look like the Commonwealth has no issues. Now, here we are as the Appropriations Committee, tracking what spending is, real averages, looking at the revenues, and over that same period of time, we're going to have a $27 billion budget hole in the Commonwealth's budget. $27 billion. So for a state that's struggling demographically, for a state that has been struggling economically versus a lot of our peers like Ohio and West Virginia in terms of economic growth, he's doubling down and tripling down, and quite frankly, multiplying by 5, that government and more government is a solution to that. Now for us, and as Senate Republican caucus, about 3 or 4 years ago, as Governor Wolf was going out the door, we saw these economic and demographic challenges coming. The first thing we believed we needed to do was we needed to stabilize the Commonwealth's financing. We had enough money in the state government coffers if there was an emergency or if there was a recession and things went bad. We had about $150,000 in reserves. That's about enough money to operate state government for about 15 minutes. We were the worst state in the country. We had negative outlooks by rating agencies. We had inflated bond ratings that really prohibited us from refinancing Commonwealth debt to try to save the taxpayers' money. So we said we're going to change that. And we negotiated and fought with that Democratic administration, and here we are today. We're now in the middle of the pack of all states and stabilizing that rainy day fund in case there truly is an emergency. Moody's, Fitch, S&P, yeah, it's okay for people to understand the finance part. Moody's, Fitch, S&P all moved us to a positive outlook. We had bond upgrades. We were able to refinance debt and save money. But we knew there were other things we needed to work on. We needed to make sure Pennsylvania was empowering parents and students to make sure that they had the best education possible to meet their own individualized needs. And even though we have had governors and Democratic House members who have fought back and pushed back and undermined the ability to give school choice, we found a way to still expand opportunities. So the Educational Improvement Tax Credit Program, we found ways to make sure that our parents know that there is some opportunity. We have a ways to go. But for a program that started off with about $25 million of opportunity back in the 1990s to about $660 million worth of opportunities now, we've come a long way with those tax credit programs. We also needed to recognize that Pennsylvania was also tagged as one of the state's worst corporate net income taxes in the country. I think we were the second highest. And if you're looking to draw in business and jobs and to get growth here in the Commonwealth, we had to compete. So we negotiated, we were now phasing down the corporate net income tax. We realized that we were one of the few states to have the net operating loss carry forward, known as the business startup penalty. We're able to negotiate that and get our foot in the door to try to make the Commonwealth more competitive. This last year, we're able to fight and go against the winds of the old mantra of higher education funding that you just give a bunch of money to brick and mortar institutions. They promise to keep college tuition costs under control, which is ironic given the fact we have the highest average cost of higher education in the country and the highest correlation of student debt. But yet again, another thing that made us less competitive. So what did we fight for? We fought and were able to get into law what was known as the GROW PA program. And that GROW PA program was specifically focused on, we are going to be student-centric. We're going to be centric on what are the job needs in Pennsylvania in high-demand fields. And right now, where we see a lot of shortages, nurses, trades, everything in the criminal justice system, large animal veterinarians in our agricultural sector, and the list goes on and on. We're going to focus on them and say, you want to help a kid out with debt? If you want to be honest with them as to what's a good career field that's going to lead to a family-sustaining job in Pennsylvania, then you want to take part in this program. And the students who are participating, not only do we know they're getting in a high-demand field, but for every year that they take that grant, they're agreeing to live in Pennsylvania and work in that high-demand field for at least 12 months for every year they take the grant. Now, I'm selfish. I hope that little John does it. He falls in love with Jill. They have children. They plant their roots here. But it's a way that we can stop the bleeding of our kids from leaving our state because they can't get jobs in some crazy major that they took in college with $100,000 worth of debt. Those are the kind of things that we've been fighting for. And the last two things I'd like to talk about, and one which is probably most critical to Pennsylvania's future, and that is the discussion about what's under our feet in this state that God gave us, and that's energy. There is not one single topic that can have such a tremendous impact on lowering energy prices for Pennsylvanians, not just your energy bill that you get, but for the cost to a hospital, the cost to a school, the cost in food production lines. Something that can absolutely make things more affordable here in Pennsylvania. There is no bigger issue. And what do we have? We have a governor with a program called the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, known as RGGI. If you hear me say RGGI, that's what it is. And what is RGGI? Simple. It's a $1.3 billion carbon tax that will be applied to that will work out to consumers, driving all our energy costs up. And you know what? We made an argument in Commonwealth Court that governors can't unilaterally implement taxes. We don't live under kings. And you know what? The Commonwealth Court actually agreed with us and we won. And what does this governor do? This governor appeals it to the Supreme Court, saying he needs to maintain executive authority. Executive authority to unilaterally implement a tax? So what does this mean? Well, it's created so much uncertainty, and as we watch energy companies invest billions of dollars and bring tremendous jobs to Ohio, West Virginia, Texas, the Gulf Coast, that uncertainty is chasing away that investment. And even more so, that uncertainty, especially combined with some crazy federal regulations over the years and air quality standards, have led to the premature closures of so many plants in Pennsylvania. And when those plants close, we lose jobs. They take their skills and move to other states where they can implement their jobs. But the thing that scares me the most is the fact that for the first time, Pennsylvania, being an energy-producing state, an energy monster, now has to deal with threats of rolling blackouts. Our grid operator telling people to turn off their Christmas lights during the last polar vortex and turn off different appliances here in Pennsylvania. That's what he has caused. And with the introduction of data processing centers, which are energy intensive, it's turned out to be a real mess. And it's one of the most critical issues, because if anyone follows along, go back 3 years ago to Texas on Valentine's Day. When your grid fails, people die. It's a serious issue. We need to take advantage of that opportunity that's under our feet. And as much as this governor likes to talk about it, with a single swipe of his pen, he could end that uncertainty and bring in billions of dollars of investment into Pennsylvania and lower your energy costs. Instead, he wants to blame the grid operators. He wants to say it's their fault, because when the big price hikes are coming, and they will, unless this issue is fixed, he could prevent all of that. He also touts that he has an alternative. Well, I'll tell you this right now. His alternative is missing in our state budget. I call it RGGI Light that he actually put in there. So you could see just a glimpse of what's at stake and what we're fighting for and how we need to really keep competing. You all know that we're kind of going uphill right now with a House Democratic majority and a governor flying around at 80,000 feet who really doesn't want to make tough decisions and prepare for something else moving forward. Well, we need to keep fighting as hard as we can because there's so much at stake. Every election matters. Every election, we need to give our all as conservatives, as people believe there's a better path for Pennsylvania. And I know this, with your help and with the people fighting for you, we'll get it done in PA. So God bless you all, and we'll see you down the road.